Hello, my friends. Today, in the Kursk direction, the Russians have once again started to slowly advance. It's been confirmed that they managed to regain control over two settlements, Lyubimovka and Novoivanivka. Here, they effectively cut off a salient and slightly expanded their territory under their control. Now, the next area is in danger. If they advance from Novoivanivka towards Malalochnya, a large section of territory could fall back under their control. Likewise, further south, the Russians managed to reclaim a significant chunk of land. However, there have been no new reports of assaults on the settlements. As you can see, the situation is gradually worsening here as well. But the Russians understand that they are running out of strength as the active phase of their offensive operation has already been ongoing on for 5 months. They're very pleased to have received reinforcements from North Korean fighters. In general, despite how tough things are on the Ukrainian front today, the Russians are in a very difficult situation. Let's see how they react when the Ukrainian forces start taking out North Korean FPV drones used by soldiers who have no experience in modern warfare. Foreign publications are reporting that North Korea has sent some of their best units, and they likely won't just guard the border but will also participate in combat. North Korea has allegedly sent one of the world's most ruthless special forces units to fight against Ukraine. This unit used to guard the father of dictator Kim Jong un. The publication refers to them as combat slaves because they grew up in an information vacuum without internet communication, phones, or Western television. These future soldiers were integrated with ideology, preparing them to destroy NATO devils and enemies of their beloved leader. We'll be waiting to see how events unfold next. Meanwhile, in the Kharkiv region, the shelling continues with airstrikes being the primary method of attack. In previous videos, I mentioned that the number of artillery strikes in the border settlements had decreased, possibly due to ammunition shortage on the Russian side, or perhaps they've realized there is no point in this shelling. For now, we are waiting to see how events unfold. As for offensive actions, the Russians continue to assault Vovchansk, but they haven't made any new gains, and the front line remains unchanged. In the Kupyansk direction, the Russians are still attempting to break through closer to Kupyansk. They're trying to advance along the river near the village of Golubivka, but so far they haven't made any new progress. The Ukrainian forces are managing to repel all their attacks. Similarly, the Russians are trying to break through toward Novoosinovo and Kolesnikivka, but here too the situation remains unchanged. At the same time, they heavily shelling the Krugliakivka area. However, the Ukrainian side still doesn't confirm any Russian advancements near this village, so we're waiting. In the direction of Burova, the Russians continue their attempts to break through to Lozova and are also trying to advance toward Vishneva. However, for now, the Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all attacks and no new Russian gains have been recorded. Further south, fighting continues for Kharkivka with attempts to break through to Novomykhailivka, but the front line here also remains unchanged. In the Crimea direction, Russian activity is not decreasing as they are determined to reach the water barrier. They are assaulting Terny, Yampolivka and Torske, and are also trying to break through near Novolyubivka with offensive actions reported in the Serebryanka forest. However, within the past 24 hours, no new successes have been recorded, though the fighting continues. In the Siversk direction, the Russians are currently attempting to break through to Ivano-Daryevka, but the activity is not at its peak, and all attacks have been successfully repelled. Shalin continues, but for now, the situation in this direction has stabilized once again. In the Chasiv Yar direction, things are much worse. The Russians have managed to establish a rather strong front line to the south of Chasiv Yar, and soon they may begin assaults on the city. For now, they continue advancing toward the village of Stupachka and conducting shelling, but their progress in this part of the front signals that there are growing problems here. In the Donetsk direction, the Russians have also managed to advance, and we are gradually losing Donetsk. Part of the city is already under their control, and fighting is ongoing for the center. They're moving closer to the western part of the city, worsening the situation. Additionally, they have reached the outskirts of Sherbinivka, and it's likely they will attempt to enter the settlement soon. In the Pokrovsk direction, the Russians continue their assaults on the villages of Promeny, Миролюбівка and Воздвиженка. The attacks on Sukhy Yar and Lysivka persist as well. They are trying to break through to the railway near the village of Novy Trud. And I want to emphasize once more that the Russians have a significant advantage in manpower and equipment. This allows them to advance deep into our territory, forming narrow stretches of the front that our forces cannot cut off. As a result, the advantage remains heavily in favor of the Russians. At the same time, the Russians have nearly encircled Solidove. While it's not a full encirclement, everyone understands that the entire city is being shelled from all sides and the assaults continue within the city itself. Local residents report that tanks are already moving through the streets. I spoke with my parents last night, and the background noise was intense. Everything was flying, explosions were everywhere. Some maps are delayed by 2-3 days in updating the territory. Unfortunately, my family says street fighting is in full swing, and there are a lot of tanks. Therefore, if there is no counteroffensive soon, we'll likely have to abandon this city, which is quite large, making this a significant loss. Additionally, the Russians are advancing further and are trying to break through to Novodmitrivka, continuing their assaults on Hirnik and Kurakhivka. And in my previous updates, I showed that the Russians had already success in capturing Zorine. So far, there is no good news from this direction. In the direction of Kurakhove, the Russians are actively pushing toward the city, trying to secure positions near its outskirts. However, the Ukrainian armed forces continue to repel all assaults. Similarly, the battles for Antonivka are ongoing, but the situation remains unchanged there as well. In the Vuhledar direction, the Russians are attempting to break through to the outskirts of Bogoyavlenka and Novoukrainka, but so far they haven't been able to establish a foothold, with the Ukrainian armed forces successfully repelling all attacks. Additionally, the shelling continues, but the front line has remained unchanged over the past day. In the Zaporizhia direction, the Russians are attempting to break through near Robotine and continue shelling, but there have been no significant changes over the past day. In the Kherson direction, shelling of Kherson continues, along with ongoing attempts by the Russians to advance on the islands. Meanwhile, explosions were once again heard in Skadovsk. Although details are currently unavailable, it appears to be yet another strike on a Russian supply depot, similar to previous events. And today, it's important to know that the Russians are not standing still either. With support from China, they are receiving new drone systems. Russian military correspondents report that they have already received reconnaissance drones disguised as birds, which were previously showcased by the Chinese. China has begun supplying us with military ornithopters. These are reconnaissance unmanned aerial vehicles that mimic the flight of a bird and are indistinguishable from real birds at high altitudes. Right now, our drone operators in the Dnipro military group are undergoing training to use these birds, thanks to our Chinese brothers from the PLA.
В настоящее время в тыловых районах Херсонской области проходят обучение операторов беспилотных летательных аппаратов. Данное обучение нацелено на то, чтобы переобучить уже готовых операторов дронов на новейшие типы беспилотников.
Friends, this is bad news. We'll have to shoot down all the birds to keep the sky clear. Meanwhile, China is actively preparing to assist Russia, just like North Korea. Reports indicate that they have opened a factory producing thousands of missiles per day. Working in 3 shifts, they produce over 1,000 missiles daily. An automated plant in China has started producing cruise and anti-ship missiles. With this massive military industrial capacity, the PRC will be able to sustain military operations for much longer than the enemy. Clearly, China is advancing at a rapid pace. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.